Before we begin, a warning. This isn't just a murder. It's a collapse of trust, of love, of a family, from the inside out. A story where affection curdles into resentment, and silence becomes more dangerous than screams. What happened inside 132 Ravenhill Lane didn't just haunt a quiet Nebraska town, it shattered the illusion of safety behind white picket fences. Because if you think you really know your family, if you think love is enough to hold people together, this story may change that belief. If you're ready to go deeper into the darkness, subscribe and turn on notifications. This is just the beginning, and someone inside that house didn't make it out alive. 3 months before the screams, before the front door was found hanging open and the carpet soaked in blood, the Calloway family was still whole, respected, loved, untouchable. Nathan Calloway ran one of Hollow Creek's most powerful logistics companies. He was built like a storm shelter, sharp as winter wind, hard to please and harder to move. His wife, Marissa, was the town's heart. Kind, involved, always smiling, always baking something for someone. Their son Jordan had just taken over the family firm. Clean-cut, disciplined, married to a woman everyone adored, almost too quickly. Her name was Elena. Sharp mind, polished charm. Elena didn't just join the Calloway household, she completed it. Effortlessly, almost unnervingly so. But not everyone agreed. Just outside the frame of every family photo stood Riley Calloway. The youngest, the artist, the afterthought. She'd grown up in that house, knew its rhythms, its warmth, its shadows. But after Elena arrived, something shifted, and Riley noticed. Her mother stopped calling. Her father began quoting Elena's ideas like scripture. Even Jordan, once her anchor, started treating her like a guest. Behind her smile, something was fracturing. Holiday cards, garden parties, charity auctions. On the outside, the Calloways looked like a Christmas movie brought to life. But inside 132 Ravenhill Lane, the cracks were spreading. Fractures no one noticed until the night they blew wide open. September 12, 2015. Jordan was finishing a late shift at the office when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was tight, nervous. "Something's not right," said Calvin Horn, the neighbor. "I've been knocking, no one's answering, and the door's wide open." Jordan froze. His mother was obsessive about locking the door. Always. He tried calling her, then his father, then Elena. No answer, not one. A silence thicker than dread took hold. Jordan threw his keys into the ignition and drove, hard, fast. The closer he got to home, the worse it felt. And then he arrived. The porch light was off, the wind had gone still, and the front door hung open just enough to let fear slip through. He stepped inside. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that warns you something is wrong. The living room was dark, the hallway darker. The air hung heavy with the scent of iron and fear. And then he saw it. Red, thick, pooling under the stairs. His mother's body lay still, her eyes open, her throat cut. What happened inside that home wasn't random. It was calculated, intimate, and deeply personal. But the most disturbing part? Everyone in that house had something to hide, and one of them was ready to kill. The silence inside 132 Ravenhill Lane was suffocating. But what Jordan Calloway found next would bury who he used to be. Just beyond the staircase, sprawled across the living room floor, lay his father, Nathan Calloway, face down, motionless, surrounded by blood. Deep, crisscrossed wounds carved into his back and ribs, as if someone had attacked with uncontrollable rage. Jordan stood frozen, the world tilting beneath him. He tried to breathe, but each inhale caught in his throat. His heart wasn't pounding, it was trying to escape. And then he remembered. His mother, Elena. Were they safe? He ran. Each step up the staircase felt like it took years, his feet heavy, his mind screaming. The kitchen came first. That's where he found her. Marissa Calloway, his mother, was collapsed on the tile floor, her nightgown soaked in crimson. Stab wounds tore through her chest and stomach. Her eyes, still open, frozen in a moment of unbearable pain, a final, unanswered question etched across her face. Jordan staggered back, but he couldn't stop now. There was one more person left, his wife, Elena. He turned the corner and entered the bedroom. First came the smell, then the shape in the bed, and then Elena. She lay twisted in the sheets, limbs contorted, frozen mid-resistance. The room was wreckage, furniture overturned, walls smeared in red. Her eyes stared, not pleading, but accusing, as if even in death she wanted someone to remember. Jordan reached for his phone with fingers that barely obeyed. The 911 dispatcher answered on the third ring. His voice didn't rise, it broke. Please, they're all gone. I couldn't save them. When authorities arrived, the scene inside the Calloway home stunned even the most seasoned investigators. Flashing lights lit up the farmhouse like a crime scene in a dream you couldn't wake from. Deputies moved methodically, room by room, cordoning off each space with crime scene tape. At first glance, it looked like a home invasion turned massacre. But there was a problem. A big one. Nothing was missing. The safe was untouched. Wallet still in drawers. Marissa's wedding ring? Still on her finger. And Elena's gold necklace, expensive and conspicuous, was still clasped tightly around her bloodied neck. There was no sign of forced entry, no valuables stolen, only pain and chaos. This wasn't about money. It was personal. The autopsies confirmed what the scene already whispered. This was a crime of emotion, not opportunity. Nathan Calloway had been stabbed 15 times, mostly in the chest and stomach, precision mixed with fury. Marissa had 12 stab wounds, her arms showing signs of defensive injuries. She fought back, but not for long. But Elena suffered 35 stab wounds, an excessive, almost ritualistic number, as if the killer didn't just want her dead, but erased. Bruising around her wrists and neck indicated she'd been physically assaulted before the knife ever touched her. The message was clear. This wasn't random. This was rage, focused, ferocious, personal. And in a house full of victims, Elena had been the target. The robbery theory collapsed instantly, which left only one chilling possibility. The killer knew the family, and they wanted Elena Calloway dead. Detectives began pulling at threads. Family, friends, employees, every known connection. One name surfaced again and again. Riley Calloway, Jordan's younger sister. Riley hadn't been home the night of the murders. That fact alone wasn't suspicious until she tried to explain where she'd been. At first she said she was with a friend. Then she said she'd been driving. Later she claimed she had fallen asleep at her apartment. 3 stories, none of them matched. And for the first time, the light of suspicion turned inward. Behind Riley's perfectly composed demeanor was a storm no one had noticed. She and Elena had clashed quietly over the past year. At first, it was subtle. Eye rolls, skipped dinners, passive remarks. But investigators learned that Riley had been struggling emotionally ever since her brother got married. Her parents had begun supporting Jordan and Elena's plans to move to a bigger city, offering financial help, even emotional guidance. Help that used to go to Riley. She felt it, a creeping, almost invisible displacement that started in their attention, slipped into their love, and finally settled into the walls of the home she once called hers. What began as quiet jealousy grew, unchecked, into fixation. The signs were there, the resentment, the change in behavior, the emotional spiral. But no one saw how far she'd fallen. Until now. Next, what did police find hidden inside Riley's apartment? And what journal entries revealed the terrifying obsession behind her sister-in-law's murder? The truth is coming, piece by piece. And what it exposes is darker than anyone imagined. Riley Calloway had always been quiet, but now investigators were listening. Her strange calm after the murders, her shifting alibis, and now a journal filled with obsession. But they needed more than suspicion. They needed proof. And then they found it. A review of Riley's phone records revealed a curious string of late-night calls, all made within hours of the killings, all to the same number, a man named Travis Elwood. To the outside world, Travis was nobody, just a part-time mechanic from the next town over. But behind the scenes, he was Riley's secret boyfriend, a relationship even her brother didn't know about. When summoned to Hollow Creek PD, Travis walked in with his head low and his jaw clenched. He tried to keep his voice steady, but the tremor in his hands said otherwise. At first, Travis claimed he hadn't seen Riley in days, that he knew nothing. But when detectives showed him the call logs, the journal, and a grainy security cam still of his truck near Ravenhill Lane that night, his story cracked, bit by bit. And then it shattered. Travis confessed. Riley had been unraveling for months, he said. Angry, isolated, furious that her family had replaced her with Elena. She'd rant about it, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. One night, just days before the murders, she turned to him and whispered, "I want her gone. You don't understand, she's eating me alive." Travis said he thought it was a figure of speech, until the plan emerged. According to Travis, Riley didn't want to kill Elena at first. The original idea? Scare her, hurt her, ruin her enough that she'd never want to be part of the family again. But emotions don't follow blueprints. And that night, something broke. Riley waited until the house went still, to 18 a.m. She crept to the back door and unlocked it. 10 minutes later, Travis stepped inside. Together, they crept upstairs. Riley opened her brother's bedroom door. Elena was asleep. What happened next was chaos. Elena woke to the sound of her name, shouted, then screamed. She fought, scratched, kicked. The knife came down fast, but she didn't go quietly. The noise brought Nathan and Marissa to the hallway, and what they saw was unthinkable. They stood frozen. She froze for a moment. Then something snapped. If they saw this, it was already too late. The attacks that followed weren't calculated, they were desperate. Nathan tried to fight, Marissa tried to run. Neither made it out alive. By 2:39 a.m., it was over. And Riley Calloway, the girl no one noticed, was suddenly the architect of a triple homicide. Back in the interrogation room, Riley finally broke. Hours of silence gave way to a trembling voice, flat and distant. "They took everything. I just wanted her gone." Tears didn't come, just a hollow stare. Her confession matched Travis's statement down to the minute. The case was closed. In court, the trial captured national headlines. Small-town perfection turned to nightmare. The media called it the Hollow Creek Massacre. Riley Calloway pled guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder. Travis Elwood was convicted as an accomplice. Both were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. But long after the trial ended, the questions lingered. How did love twist into hatred? How did a family's golden daughter become its executioner? And how many signs did they all miss? The tragedy at 132 Ravenhill Lane wasn't just about murder. It was about erosion, the kind that starts with a quiet shift in tone and ends in blood. The kind of silence that doesn't wait to scream. It waits for you to stop listening. The trial was held in the state's 14th District Criminal Court under intense media scrutiny and a courtroom packed with press, lawyers, and a grieving community. Over the span of 3 weeks, prosecutors laid out a chilling timeline. Call logs, texts, journal entries, confessions, forensics. Each piece of evidence painted a disturbing picture, one of calculated obsession and cold-blooded execution. Crime scene footage revealed the full horror of what happened inside 132 Ravenhill Lane. The number of stab wounds, the brutality. This wasn't a moment of madness. It was methodical, intentional. Travis's defense tried to frame him as a man caught in emotional crossfire. They claimed he never meant to kill, only to help Riley send a message. But the jury didn't see confusion. They saw control, premeditation, murder, and so did the judge. Travis Elwood was sentenced to death under Section 300.2 of the Nebraska Penal Code, citing the calculated nature of the killings and the disproportionate violence inflicted on the victims. As for Riley Calloway, the mind behind it all, she was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Though she hadn't plunged the knife herself, she planned every step. She opened the door, she wrote the motive, and she watched as her family fell apart by her. The courtroom sat silent as the verdicts were read. No cheers, no cries, just the weight of finality. But outside the court, one man stood truly alone. Jordan Calloway, the last surviving member of the family, sat quietly through every hearing. No words, just grief that refused to leave. After the sentencing, Jordan left Hollow Creek, packed what little he had left, and disappeared into another town, another name, another life. He said goodbye to the home where he was raised, the company he built, the woman he loved. Every room held a ghost. Her laugh in the hallway, his father's shadow swaying in the porch swing, the smell of Marissa's cinnamon bread still faint in the kitchen. Jordan didn't leave to heal. He left to disappear. But grief doesn't vanish. It just goes quiet, until it's the only thing left. Today, the Hollow Creek case remains one of the most haunting family tragedies in recent American legal history. A story not just of murder, but of what happens when emotion turns toxic, when love becomes possession, and jealousy becomes a weapon. Riley Calloway was once a daughter, a sister, a dreamer, but inside her, something hollowed out. What filled that void was hatred, and it left 3 people dead. So now we ask you, how does a family that seemed so whole fall so far? Is it neglect, jealousy, or something darker inside us all? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're drawn to the unraveling of perfect lives, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because some stories don't just disturb us. They remind us that normal is only ever a moment away from breaking,